We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. Vanderbilt professor Thomas Schwartz is with us, and taking your phone call, 737-7587, if you want to join in the conversation. We were just talking at the beginning of the show about, the dynamic right now happening around the world and domestically with some of these violent acts, many of them acts of terrorism, and how it plays against the backdrop of this presidential election. And certainly it's going to be an issue. You made the point, I think, Professor, that, during the Republican convention, that was one of the things they really did pound on, talking about safety and it's not going well and all of that, correct?
Right. Oh, yeah. No, the Republican narrative is both on the foreign policy of weakness and the attacks of ISIS, the strength of the Iranians, and the whole point being that the United States is under a type of attack and needs to respond to that, and that's that I think is central to the Republican argument for Trump's election.
And the contrast, certainly there with the Democrats, not going the other way. It's more of an optimistic point of view of the world.
ISIS on the run, we've got the problems under control, and we've made progress.
Yeah, it's interesting. And with that, as you probably all know, the reality is somewhere in between, I would imagine. Let's take some phone calls, and we'll start off with Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Cindy.
Okay, all I want to say, when I saw Hillary's America, I was just appalled and about cried. I mean, seriously, I had to stop myself from crying. It's horrible what they do. Yes, it is. And every African American or black person or even white blue-collared worker, just like you got black blue-collared workers, Muslims or anything, should see this movie. It's amazing, and it tells the truth.
Oh, you're talking, what's that new movie that just came out?
It's by Denise D'Souza.
Yeah, that's a propaganda piece. You're aware of that, right?
Well, anyway, it is true, and the thing I wanted to tell him about national security, okay, yes, I'm frightened for the American people because they shrank our military down. Thank you.
Okay. Well, yeah, the military and the role it's going to play, and I guess the form of our military, and whether how will it be set up to fight this kind of new war? Or, I don't know if it's a new war, but I mean, times have changed.
Well,
fighting terrorists is different. It's more about intelligence and, I guess, defense.
Well, it is, but, the military has many functions. I mean, on the one hand, it has to be dealing with issues in the Middle East that do involve special forces, intelligence. On the other hand, we're also defending sea lanes in Asia, which involve traditional military issues like having the appropriate number of naval forces and things like that. So the military's got a multitude of tasks, and the American military has been stretched over the last years, and it has suffered a lot of budget cuts because of sequestration and other elements going on. So the question of building the military up or what role the United States should play in the world is still out there.
Yeah. Well, let's go next to Brian. Hi, Brian.
Say what? What's with those crazy commercials?
What you got for me, Brian? Come on, buddy.
Hey, Thomas Schwartz. Is that of the Lake Zurich Schwartzes? I think I mowed their lawn one time.
No, there's a lot of Schwartzes out there.
There are a lot of Schwartzes.
Yeah.
This is Schwartzes. I mowed their lawn one time, I think, when I was in college. Listen, I think that it's going along pretty well, the election process now. I haven't seen anything too crazy. I think it should play out pretty good. National security is going to be on people's minds with all this crazy stuff going on, but I don't know. I think it'll settle down and it'll settle into a regular campaign. I mean, Trump probably won't hire a ton of people. He may win, he may lose, and Hillary, she's going to hire a ton of people, and she might win or she might lose.
I wonder, and I don't know, as he talks about watching the conventions, all right, there's definitely, Donald Trump is running as an outsider for sure. And then, if you watch last night with Hillary, they pound on her experience. And when it comes to terrorism, national security, you wonder how voters are going to view the two.
Right.
Does one have an advantage over the other because of where they come from?
Well, it's complicated because in the past, during the years of the Cold War, candidates decades of experience would like to highlight that because of the idea that you've got your finger on the button, the nuclear trigger. And in fact, even Michelle Obama mentioned the nuclear trigger, and it came up again, the idea that Trump is too impulsive and irresponsible to have the responsibility of using American military force in any context. On the other hand, Trump portrays such a strong figure to his supporters. He seems like someone that terrorists won't mess with. And this is the idea that there is also a subtle play of male and female here, the alpha male against the female candidate, that Trump is also probably on another level suggesting that he would be much stronger against terrorism and against military threats. So I'm not sure how it actually will play. National security could play in either direction. My hunch is that it would tend to play toward the more experienced candidate, but it probably won't be as significant a factor in the election as issues of the economy and immigration.
Right. I agree with you that a lot of the domestic stuff and voting your pocketbook and how all that plays out. But you do wonder, I mean, with a candidate that has more experience, that maybe has been over there dealing and with diplomacy and talking, but then you hear Donald Trump, and again, you say more of the strong figure, and you wonder how diplomatic he's going to be.
Right.
But in the world stage, you have to be. He cannot run this country like his business is. He might try, but he has to have the cooperation of others to get anything done, be it Congress or other world leaders, right?
Right. Well, but I think he wants to project an image that basically foreign policy has been so bad with all these sort of sophisticated diplomats that put in a guy who speaks directly and would deal directly with Putin and all the rest. So he projects a different type of diplomacy and influence, and the idea of making the NATO countries pay for their protection, make diplomacy much more transactional as opposed to sort of idealistic. So there is a way in which he's trying to change the nature of the game a little bit.
Let's go next to Greg. Hi, Greg.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hey, no matter which one of these clowns become our president, the agenda is always the same with this government. It's about disarming the citizens and scaring them to death, and scaring them and influencing them into giving up our rights and our freedom. We had the guy with the knife, the stabbings there in Paris or whatever, and I don't live in these foreign countries. If I go somewhere, I carry my gun with me. If someone's going to come in there with a knife and try to stab a bunch of people, then I'll take him out. But, it's just the same old story, the same old game over and over again. Stabbings here, shootings here, in France, in Paris, and everywhere in the world there's someone getting killed somewhere. We got to just focus on the United States.
But you'd agree there's a ton of people being killed here in this country.
Right, we need to focus on the people being killed here in this country and put a stop to it.
Yeah.
And if there's a place where people are getting killed with knives and guns because it's a no-gun zone or whatever, then we need to allow people to carry guns. We all have a right, a God-given right, to defend ourselves. That's the right that we have from God, not from you people in the government. The government is not God. They're not gods. You don't have a right to tell me whether I can or can't defend myself. And that's what I see this whole thing moving towards year after year, after month after month. Every time there's a shooting, we need to give more of our rights away. Every time there's a stabbing, nobody said anything about if someone had a gun on that train and a guy's sitting there with a knife trying to cut somebody, there would be an end of the story. There would not be a conversation going on. But we're never going to, after how many years has this been going on, all these shootings and things? And out of all the people that have concealed carry guns, there's never, ever, ever, ever been one time that someone's pulled a gun out and shot one of these people before they could kill anybody else. You can't, the odds are impossible of that. It's just simply not being reported because the government's agenda is to disarm.
No, I mean, that's not true.
Ever want to promote.
I was going to say, now, Greg, that's just too easy for you to say. Find a case for me. I'll say this, from the media standpoint, I'm waiting for the story that happens here locally where maybe some nut goes into a crowded movie theater with a gun and starts making threats, and some citizen like Greg with a weapon pulls the weapon and diffuses the situation. That will be an enormous story, and I can tell you unequivocally, Greg, that's not happening at the local level. If that happens, we're going to report it. Now, it hasn't yet, okay? So I don't believe there's some conspiracy, and come on, don't be crazy, Greg. There is not a conspiracy trying to, when these things happen and there's a hero who saves people, we're not reporting it. That just doesn't count. I don't care how out there you are. If you believe that, you're way out there in Neptune, okay? So don't believe that. That's just not the case, these conspiracy things. Now, the other points Greg makes about the weapons and Second Amendment issue is going to be a big one in this country. And there are some, you know, the NRA would have you believe that, you know, there are some out there that want to take your guns completely away. I mean, be it Democrat or Republican, I don't know anyone out there who's honestly saying they want to repeal the Second Amendment right to carry weapons. It's just not the truth. There is no candidate that I know of at the national level that is advocating that.
Right. No, but the gun control issue is a clear barometer between the two parties. I mean, it divides the parties quite strongly.
Well, some want more gun control, and we can debate all of that.
Right.
But no one's saying people who are responsible owners like Greg that do it properly should have their guns taken away from you.
Right. No, but the issue is much more emotional than that. And it gets to this idea that any step toward gun control is a path toward confiscation.
Yeah, people worry about that slippery slope or something. So, you did make an interesting point before the show when we were talking about how it was in Japan, knives, and there was a knifing in France as well. Part of the reason there is because knives are easier to get, right, in these countries.
Much easier, and guns in the United States are much more available. That's just simply a fact.
Yeah. I mean, that is the truth. Listen, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, if you're on hold, stay there. We've got some lines open, 737-7587. Your take at politics, the candidates right now, and terrorism, and the fight against it, security in this country, and what we see happening overseas. And if some of that happens here, obviously it'll be a big issue. Some of it already is. We'll be back with more right after this.